If you have followed this channel over the years, you have certainly heard me make fun of the way that commentators and media, players, coaches, fans, all alike, the way that they talk about the game to one another, the way that they describe the timeline of a game. It's not limited to just football. It's really all sports altogether. My number one nemesis over the years has grown to be momentum. I am very outspoken about this on Twitter. I will literally die on the anti-momentum hill. And before you try to talk to me about a counterexample or convince me otherwise, even though you can't, let me point to an example. The Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship. They got to the AFC Championship by throwing the ball over the yard, winning 15 games, maybe being the best team in the franchise's history, certainly in the last 30 years. But they are very aggressive on fourth downs and goal-to-goal situations, really on fourth down all over. Anything to continue possessions, to put points on the board, and really touchdowns over field goals. Now, here we are in the AFC Championship game, and Sean McDermott succumbs to how he feels rather than what he needs to win. And let me explain that a little bit further. Okay, the Bills are obviously up 9-0 in the first half, or in the first quarter. I think it might have even been 9-0 after the first quarter. And another thing that I talk about on here sometimes is luck, and people, that scratches people the wrong way sometimes. They're like, how can you say the team is lucky? I don't know, well, listen, you're just taking luck in the wrong context. Here's how the Bills were lucky to be up 9-0, okay? They go down the field, and they get a field goal on their first drive. That's all them. Okay, they went for it on 4th and 1. They converted. I thought maybe they were going to go for it on 4th and 3 from like the 33, but instead they try a 51-yard field goal. And I probably should have seen it right then and there that like, he's already taking the points. Like, this could be a problem here. Because usually that's an area where they're unafraid to go for it. But they wanted to put points on the board, and they do. Okay, they make the field goal. The Chiefs get the ball on 3rd down. Tyreek Hill flat out drop. Okay, he has Trey White beat, but he drops it, forcing a punt. That's luck. Okay, that is something that is out of your control. That is fortunate. Okay, the Bills get the ball back. They end up punting themselves. Mecole Hardman drops the punt. That's luck. You can't convince me that it wasn't skill, or that it was skill that forced Mecole Hardman to drop that punt. And then the Bills are lucky to be really recovering it, because once the ball is on the ground, it's really 50-50 either way. The Bills had obviously the advantage of having two gunners closing in on Hardman, okay? But luck was the reason he fumbled the football, okay? That's fortunate, and they're pretty fortunate to recover it as well and to be set up with such good field position inside the 5. They score a touchdown. They missed the extra point. Wasn't too, consequential at the time, I suppose, but they're up 9-0, and they've really been kind of lucky to this point. I'm in the stands at Arrowhead. I went to the game. And I'm like, this dude, it is destiny. We're just going to keep playing offense. We have this 2-score lead on them. I know we're not going to shut them out. They're the Chiefs. They're going to come back. They're going to score points. But so are we. I talked about this last week, about how the Bills were the second, they scored the second most amount of points in the league, and the Chiefs were 6th. That people thought that the Chiefs, the Bills needed to score points to keep up with the Chiefs. And I'm like, clamoring the table like, no, the Chiefs need to score points to keep up with the Bills. And it's 9-0 in the first quarter. I'm like, I'm flexing. Couldn't have been more excited. But that quickly faded. Obviously, the Chiefs go down. They score 3 straight touchdowns, and the Bills are pretty much helpless throughout, okay? The Chiefs have a tremendous game plan, okay? I am sitting in the stadium watching Patrick Mahomes thinking that I am seeing the best player that I have ever watched in person. It used to be Brady for a long time. Brady was maybe more on the intelligence side of it. Mahomes on the talent end, unbelievable, okay? The throws that he makes, the way he wiggles in and out, the off-balance throws and everything, it's insane. The guy is unbelievable. My number one takeaway coming out of there is, please don't let Mahomes be Brady for the next 20 years. I know he's not in the same division, but I don't want to be the Phillip Rivers again. I don't want Josh to be the Rivers and Mahomes to be the Brady, okay? Where we just never really get over that hump, because every year we have this window and it's just annually slammed in our faces by Patrick Mahomes. And that thought frightens me, because I think the Bills are a very good team. I don't think that's even debatable. The Bills are a very good team, and I think they're going to have a nice championship window here, but they're always going to have Patrick Mahomes, and I'm nervous about it. I'm very nervous about how that is going to play out over the next couple of years. Anyway, let's circle back. It's 21-9. The Bills get the ball back with like 4 minutes left in the second quarter, and I'm thinking they cannot let the Chiefs double dip here. That is the number one thing they can do not do is punt this football, let the Chiefs score now, and then get the ball to start the third quarter. So they did a nice job to burn out the last 4 minutes of the half, okay? They get into a goal-to-go situation, and I think it was like 3rd and goal at the 4, and Josh kind of forces one to Dawson Knox, who catches it and cuts it in half to the 2. But 4th and goal at the 2, you're down 12, okay? I guess it's a little different here maybe if you have that extra point beforehand because you can kick the field goal to make it an 8-point game, a 1-score game. But you cannot kick this field goal to make it, to cut a 2-score game to still 2 scores, okay, and then kick off. I don't care that the Chiefs ended up kicking a field goal on their next drive, which just puts you back to where you were. So it really just took like 7 minutes off the clock or whatever, 7 or 8 minutes off the clock, and you're in the same hole that you were beforehand, okay? If you get a touchdown on that drive and it's 21-16, and then you hold them to a field goal, then you're getting the ball back in a 1-score game. I prefer to think about it that way, and for a lot of the season, the Bills have thought about it that way, okay? They really haven't been trailing by too much at any point in the season, except to Kansas City and to Tennessee earlier in the year as well, but they have had a very forward-thinking process all along. It just, you know why it's so frustrating to me is because it happened kind of last year in Houston, in the playoff game against Houston. The Bills hadn't done that like Buffalo Bill thing where they are leading and then a team just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back and we're just like, oh no, this isn't happening, and then you lose a heartbreaker. And then it happened in the playoffs. And this year the Bills are just this a relatively dominant team, a team that has coasted in a lot of games. They find themselves in a hole and they kind of turtle up into their shell. They lose their aggression, okay? And that is partially on Sean McDermott. I don't think he should lose his job or anything like that, okay? Like, I already give a bunch of credit to the Chiefs. I give credit to the Chiefs. They confused the heck out of Josh. They confused the heck out of the offensive line. They made it difficult for them all night long, and they did a tremendous job on offense, okay? They were like, all right, you're going to play zone, okay? You're going to drop back into your zones. We're just going to hit Travis Kelce, who's just going to shift left and right till he's open, and we're going to hit him for 8 yards. And we're going to do the same thing to Tyreek Hill. You're going to play Trey White off him? Fine, okay? We'll just run an 8-yard comeback and then good luck tackling him. He's the fastest man alive. Okay? Like, they have insane weapons, don't get me wrong. Tyreek Hill, one of the best receivers in the league. Travis Kelce, probably the best tight end in the league. And Patrick Mahomes, probably the best quarterback in the league, okay? Other than Rodgers. He's the best young quarterback in the league. I don't think there's any debating that. I mean, he's now 26-1 in his last 27 starts. And I know that QB wins gets, overplayed sometimes. Like, it's really just a bad stat, but I mean, eventually it speaks to something. Okay, you've won 26 of your last 27 games with this guy starting for you, but that circles back to my point. Okay, you can't be kicking field goals in the penultimate game. You are in the biggest game in the history of the franchise, well, at least since the turn of the century, since the turn of the 90s almost. Okay. And you're on the road against the defending champions. You just can't be kicking field goals in that situation. Sean McDermott just succumbed, whatever the past tense of that is, okay, to how he felt. He's like, oh, we got to get points here. Just some sort of belief, momentum. We have to slow their momentum, okay? No, you don't need momentum, okay? You need touchdowns. You are down 2 scores to Kansas City, the defending champions. All right? Like, of course they're going to keep scoring. If you're going to kick that field goal, you better have a darn good plan to stop them. Okay? And it just wasn't there. I mean, I'm sitting there watching the game in the second quarter, feeling like you can just see the trends. Like, oh, the Bills are really struggling. Like, they're working for everything. The Chiefs kind of aren't. The Bills are lucky to get their points. The Chiefs just marched down the field and got theirs. So the Bills need to capitalize upon every opportunity. And kicking a field goal in that, it's just not right. All right? I know that McDermott, after the game, said that he wishes he could have it back, but you don't get to do that. All right? You live in those moments. I don't know if you live and die in those moments. I don't know if the analytics guys, I can't imagine the analytics guys were like, it's 50-50 here. Do what you want to do. I have to imagine that they are telling him the right move there is to go for it, and he is overriding that decision. There's a lot to be said about analytics. People treat it like it's a swear word, but it's like you are in charge of wins and losses, okay? When you're in charge of wins and losses, you should use every piece of information that is at your discretion, and analytics is a part of that. So let's just call it information, all right? Information. This is like statistics. You need to be privy to this type of stuff, okay? Use whatever is available to you. And if you're just ignoring it, that's foolish. It really is foolish. And I know that there's guys out there that do it. There's head coaches out there that do it. And some of them are probably successful. But if I'm just speaking hypothetically, like imagine you're in charge of wins and losses. And people are like, oh, I have this information here that might help you. That could help you create, whether it's football or not, like optimal lineups, or baseball, hockey, basketball, whatever. Or, what to do maybe in a certain situation, your win probability, whatnot. And you're just like, that's okay. That's okay there, kid, math whiz. I got this, okay? I've been around this game for however many years. Like, how arrogant does that sound? And I'm not saying the Bills do this, but I know, because obviously they don't. But I know that there's guys out there that do it. I just needed to go, I guess, on a little analytics rant. Anyway, disappointing. Disappointing end to the season, although I wouldn't call the season like a loss, obviously. Like, they got to the AFC Championship, guys. Like, that is as fun as it gets. Like, almost as fun as it gets, okay? One win away, 60 minutes from the Super Bowl. They were really 45 minutes away from the Super Bowl because they were up 9-0 in the first quarter. It was so fun for I would love to live in the moment the Bills recovered that fumbled punt forever. Like, that might have been the best moment of the season. The Bills recovering that punt and scoring a touchdown on the next play. If I could live in that 1 to 2 minutes forever, I would love it. Anyway, there's a lot of question marks hitting the offseason. The Bills obviously have the 30th overall pick in the draft. This is a little bit unfamiliar territory for us. What do people do with the 30th overall pick? Is it advantageous to hold on to that fifth-year option for your first-round pick? Probably. Or do you trade down and get more assets? I guess that depends on what you want to do in free agency. And the Bills are kind of up against it. They're kind of up against it in free agency because I believe they're a little bit over the projected salary cap, which is going down a little bit, or is at least maintaining itself. I think it's going down, but it's certainly not going up. And the Bills are slightly over the projected cap at this point, so there's a couple cuts they can make to give themselves some cap space, but like they're tough cuts. John Brown, Jerry Hughes, like they could go down the Mitch Morse, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde route, you know? They could cut the guys that they just signed, Addison, Jefferson, guys like that. There's a couple like shoo-ins to be cut. Like they already cut E.J. Gaines. Lee Smith can save $2 million. That seems like obvious. Okay, there's a couple obvious ones. But there's going to be some tough ones as well that are going to leave holes on your team. And you're going to have to fill them with draft picks. That's why I don't think the Bills will necessarily move up in the draft. A lot of people, let's just get this idea out of the way. They want Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida. Would love Kyle Pitts. I think he's a more athletic Darren Waller. I think he's going to be better than Darren Waller, which is going to put him in like the Kittle, Kelsey tier, you know. So, but he's going to go in the top 15 probably. So you have to cut that in half. You have to cut your draft position in half, and you have to give up a lot to get up there. And you're probably going to lose a lot of players. So I just don't think the Bills are really in the market to do that. I think they will more likely sit back this year and try to draft a bunch of players because I think they're going to lose a bunch to free agency or to tough cuts. Now, where do we start? I guess I brought up John Brown first. They could, John Brown and the tight end. Let's say pass catchers, okay? So they could cut Brown and save almost $8 million. I kind of hope that they just restructure that and make his cap number a lot lower. I don't know the odds of that. I don't know how realistic that is. I hope, fingers crossed, that they do that because I love John Brown. I think, health has kind of always been his issue, and it obviously turned its head this year. But he had a really good year with Josh in 2019, and I would love to see him come back with Diggs and Beasley, obviously. But there's obviously that argument to be made. We could just get Brown out of here. Gabe Davis slides into that role. He had 35 catches, 7 touchdowns in his rookie year, so a lot of people are optimistic about him. Does he fulfill that role immediately? I'm not sure. I think he's got the talent to do it. I don't even really consider Gabe Davis a sleeper in the draft. It's more of a steal just because he fell that far. I love Gabe Davis's talent all along. And, I guess you don't necessarily know. You don't know, but you can think. Like, I thought Gabe Davis was going to be good all along. And I'm happy to see that it looks like he's going to be a nice player for this team for years to come. Tight end, obviously. We talked about the Kyle Pitts thing. A lot of fans seem to want Jonnu Smith. I would love Jonnu Smith. I'm sure I talked about it earlier this year in my Titans video. Like, I think Jonnu Smith is one of the more underrated, underappreciated tight ends in the entire league. Just a freak athlete at the position. And I would love to see the Bills bring him in. Again, I don't know how realistic this is because of the cap situation. I don't know what he's going to command, and I'm sure he would fit. I'm sure the Bills would find ways to use him, but I just don't know. Until we see something happen with the roster, with cuts and what have you, it's tough to predict, especially because the Bills are up against the cap. I trust Bean, though. I do trust Brandon Bean to be smart with the cap space, to figure it out. I think that's why he kind of structured the deals like with Addison, Jefferson, and A.J. Klein and stuff the way that he did. Because there's really not too many sure things on the roster next year. If you look at like the Bills cap table, it's like Deion Dawkins, Stephon Diggs, Star Lotulelei has to be here. And then there's like a couple guys, couple rookies that just wouldn't make any sense to cut. But they could overhaul this thing completely. Like offensive line, for example. They could cut Mitch Morse, keep Feliciano around, use that money to keep Feliciano. Maybe he plays center. But then they have to figure out what they're going to do at guard and tackle. Like, are they going to keep Darrell Williams? They could probably find somebody on day 2 of the draft to replace Darrell Williams. But then you're like committing a draft pick to that point. Okay? So you could... Cody Ford will be back. Like, you could just play him at left guard, keep him at left guard, try to re-sign Feliciano, and try to keep all the guys together. I would like that. You could try Ryan Bates, or I'm just pointing out that cutting Morse, I guess, is an option because it saves like $4 or $5 million, and gives you a little bit more freedom. But then you're down the player. Then you need to replace him. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. Deion Dawkins, the only sure thing on the offensive line for now. Talked about the offense. Let's talk a little bit about the defense. CB2 obviously has always been a thing. Like, it's been, they've done 1-year deals with guys like Vontae Davis, like Josh Norman, like Kevin Johnson, EJ Gaines. They just have had a revolving door at CB2, and they could continue that down that road. They could maybe draft a guy like Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network. I believe his first mock draft had Aaron Robinson, a cornerback, being drafted to the Bills. I could see that because by the time his 5th-year option expires, Tre'Davious White's contract is approaching its end, and then maybe like Trey is out the door and Robinson gets the extension if he has earned it up to that point. So like there's certainly some strategy there. I wouldn't necessarily think the Bills are just like, oh yeah, we'll just do that, because I think they're probably going to lose Matt Milano more likely than not. I wish I could have defended Matt Milano at Arrowhead Stadium. They heard you. The Chiefs fans heard you wherever you were spewing your Milano positivity, which is fine. I think Matt Milano is a terrific player and certainly an impact player for the Bills. But they heard you. The Chiefs fans heard you. Like, every time you made a tackle, they were like, hey, Milano, yeah, high fives and stuff. Like, they were laughing because they were up by so much as well. And I hated that I was really not in a position to do anything about it. But it is what it is. Bean said that Milano's earned the right to go to free agency. And he said the same thing about Shaq Lawson last year. And so I assume they'll make an offer to Milano, but I could see somebody overpaying for him, definitely. Somebody like Belichick or something like that. And I don't think the Bills have the space to franchise tag him. So they might have to overhaul the linebacker room a little bit. They might have to overhaul the defensive line. Trent Murphy's going to be off the books. Maybe Addison is. Maybe Jefferson is. You're getting Lotulelei back with Oliver and Epinesa, and you really have a lot of unanswers after that. A lot. Okay? Because, like I said, Addison's a year older. So is Jefferson. These are also guys that I just mentioned can be cut to save cap space. So, I do think the Bills are going to be good because they have their core pieces. Okay? They have Josh. They have Dawkins. They have Diggs and Beasley. So I think they're going to be good. And Trey White and Hyde and Poyer, who I don't think are going to be released. So I think that I would bet on them being good again next year, especially returning all of the coaching, most of the coaching staff, if not all of it. Dable and Frazier are passed up for jobs, so they will be back. Ken Dorsey, I guess, could be the OC in Miami, but that remains to be seen. I don't know where he is in terms of being a favorite for that job. So, like, they're bringing a lot of guys back. They're going to have a ton of continuity on the staff, and they're going to have continuity at some of the most important positions. But the roster still could look a lot different. And that is, obviously a victim of an unfortunate victim of COVID, an indirect victim of this COVID outbreak, pandemic, So we'll see what happens there. I guess the last thing I will talk about, and something that Sean McDermott did bring up in his post-game presser, is we need to run the ball better. And I panicked at first, because I never thought that. I wasn't like, oh my God, if we were only running the ball better. But the more I think about it, I think he just wants somebody who is more effective running the football than more run plays. You understand what I mean? I think they want Zach Moss to be that guy. Unfortunately, he wasn't available to him with that ankle injury. But I think that they might be ready to move on from Devin Singletary, to push him down the depth chart a little bit. I know he had a tremendous rookie year, but I think they might be ready for something else. I think they like a CJ Spiller type, like that type of player who not necessarily commands more carries, but is just super effective with the 10 to 15 touches that he gets, the 10 carries and the 4 catches or something like that. People have pointed to Travis Etienne, to Najee Harris. I don't know if they necessarily make it to 30. I don't know. TJ Yeldon has been on the team for 2 years, and we just finally started using him in the pass game in the AFC Championship. I wish that he would have been more, less of an afterthought for this offense, because I think that he's a talented player. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing him back. Jamal Williams out of Green Bay would be kind of a favorite for mine, but he might be similar to how they view Zach Moss. So I'm not sure they would want to spend the free agency dollars, if they even have the free agency dollars available to them. Anyway, all in all, the season was fun, man. I mean, we had so much fun this year. It's kind of a dark time for the country. I talked about this a couple weeks ago in terms of people's health, in terms of people's security, and there's just so many distractions. But we, as a community, Bills fans, were distracted by the Buffalo Bills. They carried us through September, August, September, all the way through the new year and almost up to February. So appreciate them for that, obviously, and I'm super excited about next year. Guys, I will talk to you in a couple of months, unless the Bills make some huge headline news. We'll talk about the draft in a couple of months. But until then, you can hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle and YouTube username are the same. I'm definitely going to be looking to talk Bills football. It's just not the same about the games right now. So I kind of need it. So hit me up, all right, guys? Anyway, enjoy the rest of your winters, I suppose. And as always, above all else, go Bills.